a team that everyone's expecting to do well. Then you start going down off spawn, you start having some troubles, then leaving that drop spot. It just changes things up so much. So now for a team that a lot of people would have expected to be in the top 10, maybe even the top 5, they're looking at just about hopefully making it into the top 20.
Yeah, it's really hard for them in that situation, especially because there were some games where like they lost the off spawn, but one of them would survive. And so you have the ability to revive your teammate, but we know how hard it can be when you're landing at a spot that's central to then have to completely switch up the idea about how you're going to play the game and recover the game. It's not going to be easy for them, but, you know, we'll have to see if they even stay contested, right? Because, you know, the team ended up leaving some of the last game. So they'll definitely be hoping that they can survive. I mean, I'm looking at this final page, Frankie, and I mean, it's hard to look at one of the teams here for sure.
I'm gonna try and be optimistic about this. Could we see a historical performance for the ages from Swizzy and Pixie? Attacker said they have been practicing their off-spawn. They were looking for volunteers yesterday at 11. Is it too late for these guys to make it to LAN?
No, because I think, you know, I look at how many points they're probably going to need today, right? And, you know, we sort of have an estimate of like around 300 odd points in that sort of range. Can these guys sort of average, you know, 60 points per game over the course of 5 games? I think they probably could, Mini. It's gonna take a lot though, because they really struggled off spawn here at Dark Dominion. Even when they weren't having problems with Truly, they were having problems here underneath the POI with teams sort of rotating in. You can see them getting snuck up on. You had Hydro and Kaito for 9 and Moneymaker constantly sneaking in the tunnels and stealing some of their loot from underground and just sandwiching them in. It was really rough and really nasty at times. I don't know what to expect at all, because I don't see what changes unless they just leave.
Yeah, well, now they have the context of what happened in day one. Hopefully they can sort of learn from that, right? They're 2 very good players. You'd expect them to be winning those fights, but, you know, it's going to be difficult for them. It's not easy at all.
Well, if you're a Swizzy and Pixie fan, send them your best, because we are ready to board the battle bus. It's time for Game 7 with Taco and Takata.
Thank you guys so much. And I think what's really exciting about today, Takata, is all of the stipulations surrounding it. It's not just 20 teams that we're going to be confirming for this Major 1 Summit LAN, but we got to see what happens first, because Game 7's ready to go.
Despite my bias being from Spain, I would like to see some West zones today. I want to see, you know, the teams in the top prove that it's not all the zones. They have the experience and skills needed to continue that place. And I'd like to see them prove it. Regarding kind of the early game that we were alluding to, Taco with Swizzy, you were saying he's been practicing off spawns?
After yesterday's matches, it comes as no surprise that they were interested in looking towards those off spawns. But what I'm interested in right now is Wonky Land. Things were really starting to heat up yesterday. Sharktini definitely falling short of the expectations that the entire community and those even outside of EU had sort of placed upon these two. And whether you could argue that's just Huddy and Fishy having really, you know, ticked all the boxes and doing their homework, making sure that they came super prepared to try and overthrow Sharktini from the POI. But this has been a conversation that started in the offseason, and it's not going to stop anytime soon here today. Sharktini, though, gathered a little bit of their bearings around them. Teeny kind of just waiting for the prime opportunity to strike, looking for some of those opening shots, opening blows. A couple good tags there onto Fishy, but still not enough for him to feel comfortable with trying to go in for the full-on attack.
We saw a lot of confidence coming from Sharktini, not just in these major finals, but Div Cups, scrims, all sorts of opportunities where if they kind of had the chance to take those 1v1s. So I'm curious to see how that changes here in day 2.
And we know that for a fact there's going to be some teams that are going for those surprise contested situations. Nebs, Nathan, this is just an excellent review here of how Nathan was able to clutch things up for him and his duo. Even though Adapted Exer tried to interrupt them over at Humble Hills, those opening eliminations, it still bodes pretty well for their net surge overall. And Darm Deemish, I think, are another one of those teams where you never really know what their next move is going to be. The only thing that's for certain right now here today, Takata, is that they're going to continue going on tour. It was unfortunate that they lost their original POI drop with Tip Top Terras, but game is game. And sometimes for pros, you have to make those on-the-fly adaptations. And one big thing for Darm Deemish is their strategy just really seems to be reminiscent of that OG Misha Tini strat, where they're the ones that are looking for those ambush attacks on teams, interrupting their loot paths, and it makes perfect sense. They're very competent fighters, and they had about half their matches yesterday where they really got to play out the end games, and they managed to find themselves in 12th place heading into today, which is pretty impressive, given when you don't actually have a home to call your own.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say comfortably in the top 20, but the difference between 12th and 20 is not much at all. Cutoff is currently 153 points for top 20. The estimates, we were saying around 250 to 300 when the day ends. But let's see if this strategy of kind of going all over the map pays off. Demish Storm actually did land at this POI previously, so now that they've been spotted out and the noise has been made, the aggression is going to kick off.
It's just Darkos also lurking in the wings. Ifrozi and Azad, they might have maybe been suspecting, given that Darm Demish, they did make an indication that they were interested in possibly contesting them pretty early on. But it's lobby conditioning after all, and for Darm Demish, everybody's got to be on their toes, never really know what to expect from these two, aside from the fact that they're willing to get scrappy. They're gonna have to duke it out here now. Ifrozi trying to see if he can get a separate angle of approach here. Just gonna reconvene with his duo though. Shark Teeny on the other hand, they're ready to strike. Wonky Land really starting to heat up already here in Game 7. Teeny looking for the immediate approach. Here's the thing, Teeny and Shark. Buddy and Fishy, they stole your POI. They stole your placement yesterday. I mean, they played the reverse Uno card on these guys. And now they're trying to take their chain back. Wonky Land has to be established. And for Shark Teeny, you know that they want to call it their own, but as long as Huddy and Fishy exist in the lobbies that they are also participants to, that's just not going to be feasible.
This is a big match for both of these players, and there's not any all-out aggression coming through. The issue is they can't fully split it either. We've seen how that goes. Darm Demish, though, have picked up Darkos. There was a lot of third parties in the surrounding area, but from what I'm seeing is it looks like they might have just made it out.
Must have been an unfortunate outcome there for Minori early on, since it was just Darkos lurking by himself. Scary and Saez, though. This might be a big part of the reason why Darm and Demish left the actual vicinity of Builder's Barracks, because third-party intervention is always going to be a prime issue for every single one of these duos. Scary. Now trying to see if he can get the wraparound. The confidence, though, really starting to showcase itself after yesterday. Hard to also forget what took place. And Saez nearly had one of the most insane solo clutches that we've ever seen in a finals lobby, but Azet just tinkering around in these lower layers. Nowhere really left for him to run, though. He's kind of just getting pinched from both Scary and Saez, separate angles of approach.
2v1. Shouldn't be long before Saya Scary closes off, but I don't want to jinx anything. Both players are now cracked. It's a 1v1 as that has completely turned this fight around. Sayas trying to sneak his way out. Just one build left. And Scary now has a lot more pressure on his shoulder. Oh, no.
It just doesn't matter. Azet defends home base, and that is going to be a detrimental blow already to our third place team on the leaderboard. When you talk about the metrics, the ripple effects, it makes it so much more feasible for somebody in forward like Vika Malibu to overtake. But looking at these initial opening shots, that was just a nasty opener from Azet. But the fact that he was able to even break through in the first place in that 1 versus 2, Saez and Scary, they had the right idea, just the wrong execution.
You just cannot be losing those 2v1s, especially in the early game, if you're looking to get not only a top 3, I mean, this was contenders coming up on top, and I mean, the zone was even pulling towards them once again. So much confidence after day 1, the performance of their lives, and now a rough start to day 2. Hopefully they can just forget about it and move on. They still have 5 more matches today. Shark Teeny still here in Wonky Land.
I'll tell you one thing. That's the problem, Takata. Still here. We're in the third zone, and there is yet to be a conclusion formed between who's actually coming out on top for this off spawn. And granted, Wonkyland is one of those POIs that you can split and still see both duos have a pretty dominant performance from. But at the end of the day, you know that's not what either of these teams are interested in. There is so much pride riding on the line here right now. And for Sharktini especially, they've got a rep to rebuild, because yesterday's performance was just, it was just not indicative of what we've seen from them all throughout the offseason. And here in this Grand Finals lobby, day 2, it'd be your best chance to get a little recovery tour going, and now they've kind of overstayed their welcome. They're making themselves a little bit more susceptible even to potentially getting third-partied. I mean, you have to remember, there's still Twek and Mydro over by Toy Box Docks that could decide to mosey on over once they hear some of those shots starting to ring out, and it's very believable that other teams would be drawn to the area.
Going back over to our number 1 duo, though. They've been playing with each other for so long. And as Minnie was saying on the desk earlier, one thing to highlight from Sky and Scroll is they weren't as far as possible, as far as you can be from the zone, but they weren't pulling every zone either. And they still only had one match outside of the top 10 throughout the whole day. So we can expect to see them keep that consistency up. Honestly, no matter where the zone goes. I guess if we got like all North Zone pulls today, it could look a little difficult, but Vico Malabuca, I'm happy to see them in 4th place. They had a interesting time in heats, but seeing them here in set lobbies with the best of the best, it's what they're comfortable performing in.
You might be happy to see them in 4th, but knowing Vico Malabuca, that is most definitely not the same sentiment that they're going to be sharing here today, Takata. They are looking to really see if they can make some big leaps to play catch-up with Sky and Scroll. But Flixie Chap, another one of those teams that you can 100% expect to not be content with their current placement on the leaderboard. They are trying to go up, up, up. And I mean, starting off over uncontested at Storm Station, it's a very northbound position. Zones, though, I don't think that was their primary issue after yesterday. I think it's really just about smoothing out those mid to end game transitions, but yeah,
we gotta call Zeke.
Yeah.
We gotta see what's going on with these zones. We gotta make a phone call, phone a friend. Once again, Sandy's Strip. Yeah, it's
tough.
not it's not looking great. I know Thomas he's locked in right now, but he's gonna be like, are you kidding me? Really, this is how we're kicking off the day? But I mean, look, the good news is I'd hope that, they took the time to kind of do the homework and prepare for this. Scroll, though, picking up another elim. As now they're looking very well off.
Yeah, Forg, I'm sorry. You had no business being near that storm base from Sky and Scroll. That is... that is actually wicked work there, though. Sky Scroll not going to complain about 4 additional elimination points here. Yapko Panzer, a team that is just inside that top 20 threshold currently, but obviously there's more at stake than just that LAN qualification spot for the Major 1 Summit. Everybody wants to also earn as much prizing as they can from this Major 1 Grand Finals, and for Yapko and Panzer, they're content to just stay a little bit tucked away from the rest of the commotion, but Sharktini, time to get a move on. Trying to block off shots best they can. 251 above right now on their damage threshold. So, both teams will at least leave intact from Wonkyland. Question now is just, what are they going to do to prove that surviving Wonkyland is going to net a nice endgame?
Thing is, yeah, it's more than just winning Wonkyland, right? It's a POI where you can rotate late out of. You have incredibly good, rotation opportunities with the Wonky Wheel, low mist overdrive combo. But Sharktini is a team that wanted to kind of block Honey and Fishy from making it to Summit 1. And after finishing 21st day 1, now I think they're just focused on kind of cementing themselves in a better place on the leaderboard. But Speak of Huddy and Fishy. Both players now have gone down.
And it's Vico Malabuka. They're gonna be the ones to shut them out. Malabuka and Vico, I mean, hey, you encroach upon their territory over at Frigid Fortress. You're bound to get a little bit of a bite back here. Panzer, though, seeing him and Yapko in this dire straight position. Ju trying to do what he can. Likely low on Surge. Panzer also going to fall below, and it doesn't matter. Katri and Ju are going to be able to solidify that last elimination there, but I thought that they were going to be able to avoid most of the traffic. It's just the way that Xi and Chris Buka seemingly snuck up on them. Really played spoiler in their mid-game, but yeah, Katri and Ju are still just below the Surge threshold, trying to play catch-up right now. Last we saw Chris Buka and Xi, they were also another one of those duos that was just underneath their Surge threshold, which is probably a big part of the reason why they forced that fight against Yapko and Panzer to begin with. But Katri and Ju, just how long do you really intend to try and wait this one out? Only 25 below. The last medkit being used right now, even from Ju, has a couple of small shield potions, but really has to depend on Katri to find a shot. And he'll connect it, but at what cost currently? Chris Buka and Xi just collapsing fully onto Ju's duo. Ju gonna come crashing into their box, but he just doesn't have any health to work with, and the Surge will take care of him.
Vico Malabuka. Something's gone terribly wrong. From picking up Putty Fishy to now Vico playing solo, 145 below. Trying to fish up anything to help him heal up here. How did this happen?
That Surge is a very fickle beast to contend with inside of a set lobby finals. And every single duo, after yesterday's performance, whether good or bad, everyone has had to reevaluate where they build their Surge from. And even experienced teams like Vico, like Malabuka, it's very realistic for them to struggle. It's a new mechanic and just too much for Vico to try and contend with this time. Checo Centilio will head over to his loot body, but it's a tough break, that's for sure. But it is only Game 7. We still have plenty more matches still to go.
That we do. Yannis cheating 7th place on the leaderboard. Looking incredibly healthy going into this late game. They've had pretty favorable zones as well. It is very close. They drop right beside Syas and Scary, so hopefully they can capitalize it once again, seeing that they got a nice zone to kick it off today.
Yannis and Cheatin have done an excellent job. I don't think most people would have had them painted for top 10, especially 7th place, but Chat Flixie, it seems like trouble is definitely starting to strike here. Ija Media is going to be the ones that actually hold them at bay. Sharktini also just below on their damage threshold, applying even further pressure onto Chap. Once a team is kind of gauged to be a little bit weakened, the whole lobby focus in. Nice little harpooning efforts from Shark also. Steal away some of that additional loot. It's those micro mechanics that can make a pretty big difference later on. Nice tag onto Medias too, but 83 above, they're still gonna have to get active. They're gonna have to get fraggy. And if there's a duo that you wanna see get fraggy in the first place, it's gotta be Shark and Teeny.
I want the confidence to be fully built back up though. You can kind of tell they're a little desperate to get back up that leaderboard. But looking at Chap here, 315 below. I was talking about it yesterday. This is a team that had really high expectations going into 2026, and they just haven't quite lived up to it in terms of how the placements have been. But they have the experience. The issue is kicking it off like this, going down top 30.
Wrong place, wrong time, man. Chap had to move. He didn't have any options, but it's just unfortunate the overdrive grenade just sent him fully into the line of sight there of Shark and Teeny, but they're not going to complain about that in the slightest. Now starting to crank just a little bit up, headed for the high ground. Don't believe that they have ultimate height established just yet. Seems like they're going to wait things out temporarily. We've got a little bit of leverage here on secondary height. Gold Peshka, Chino Pablo, just a couple of teams that might be starting to go a little bit more head-to-head for that actual ultimate high ground control. But Momsy and Skyjump, 273 above. So their surge looking decent, but it's always a little bit more cautious for how you want to proceed. Even if you got surge now, it doesn't mean you're going to be able to maintain it when you make the next rotate.
Kirakarama, only duo that was ahead. We'll take a look at what Thomas Focus have been up to. Nice little elims. They needed these refreshes, considering that they had to make a incredibly far rotate once again just to get here, but it's one of the teams that has still been performing well despite that. Gino Pablo, though, they have another opportunity at a big match.
Tanking, just a couple of ticks of Storm might make for a late attempt, slightly later rotate, but it looks like disaster has struck here. Pablo and Chino, while they're waiting for the opportunity, instead they're gonna be the ones seized upon. Pablo now looking to fight things out, but Reason, no, Riley, a bit desperate there. Not gonna come crashing into Pablo's box just yet, but Pablo's not careful. They might choose to follow him. Will manage to actually navigate his way towards the front side of zone, but as a solo in this kind of position, you just gotta be so paranoid because teams, one layer above, one layer below, you never know when someone's gonna come running right at you. And Skyjump Momsy seems like they want to take more control of this ultimate low ground. We saw just how fruitful it was for Sky and Skrull in yesterday's performances. So if another team has those same intentions, could be interesting. No Riley, though. Not gonna stick around. Ghosty cleaning up Dina's backside of the zone. Thomas and Focus, though, they've got their eyes set on the prize, and they're just making sure that they cut off Surefour and Repairs, but they've already managed to target further ahead. Pablo's still looking for eliminations, and we've seen Pablo do it before, Takada. The solo clutch factor is definitely there, but how much more placement, how many more eliminations can he realistically secure from this point?
Currently top 16. Issue is he only has 3 builds. Sharktini, this is what we've been waiting for. They're running low on mats. They're going to need to look for some refreshes. Sky Skrull in a similar situation. Issue is backside of zone now. Looking for options. Yanis Cheatin, Holden, Height, Strong. So far, no teams have contested them, but it looks like Shark has gone down. Teeny is left all alone. Pablo still able to clutch this up, gets a nice refresh, and now has a chance to continue forwards.
The branches, man, just stopping him in his tracks. Teeny also going to be brought to a fall. Thomas and Focus now waiting in the wings here. Sky, additionally a solo, but he's looking. He's just trying to dance around the lobby. He's fist buying him a little bit of time, making him a slightly more difficult target to try and track down. But Sky, the fact that he hasn't received any damage just yet, looking to get a big shot onto Nebs, doesn't actually get the full knock though, just takes out his shields. He is not healthy on the low ground, but Thomas and Focus, they find Sky. That's gonna be 9 eliminations already for Thomas and Focus. They are cranking things up a notch here, looking to maybe drop another layer, potentially see if they can play cleanup crew to those teams in the ultimate low ground, or just let them collide against each other. But Repairs and Surefour, the consistent pressure. Thomas doesn't have any more builds. He can't afford to go for the chop. He's forced to transition to ultimate low. Thomas, though, nearly gets the shot, but Nathan gonna put him in the dirt. Nathan and Nebs, another double elimination team, looking to try and close this one out.
Almost at 100 points in a single match, but the issue is his teammate is down. Cringe now, trying to see if he can continue his momentum from when he kicked things off yesterday in game 1, but he is gonna go down.
Surefour's gonna be the first one to drop. Repairs still applying pressure from overhead. They've just got to track down Nathan, but he can't withstand the storm. Surefour and Repairs finding their first victory royale of the weekend here in Game 7.
That height at the end was getting chaotic. Thomas HD Focus, they were looking for it. Jeet and Janice could not hold on for long enough, but somehow Repairs, sure, they got the job done. They took it at the right moment. Desk, I need you to break that down for me.
I think the best summary is they took it by force, Levin 2K. Repairs was known as one of the biggest damage dealers, I think top 10 damage dealer in the lobby yesterday, and now he can call himself a Victory Royale winner too.
Yeah, look, I want to give these guys a lot of credit, but I also want to take a moment to give praise to one of my personal favorite analysts in Fortnite, and that's Coach Harry. He was on the broadcast for Reload, right? I spoke to Coach Harry before Grants and I asked him, who's your surprise team? Who's the underrated team that you really rate? And he said, I see Shawful and Repairs getting a top 10 this weekend and surprising a lot of people. I think he even said as far as like he could see them even sneaking towards a closer top 5 position, something mad like that. And I sort of looked at him and I went, oh, I don't know about that one, but I think this is exactly what he was seeing in the replays that I think a lot of people weren't seeing, is their ability, Mini, to have games just like this one.
Well, he might just be absolutely right, because on the start of the day, they were starting in 11th place, and that win is surely going to boost them way up in the standings. Can't wait to see where they are right now. But a really nicely closed out endgame right here. We had a little bit of a sort of UK battle down on low ground with Nevs and Nathan against Twy and Cringe. And what they did really well here was just stayed up above Walds. All those guys fought it out down below. Shawful, really nice elimination right there onto Cringe just to go down. And what I like here as well, Repairs was just staying up on top, almost securing the win while Shawful was taking them out in Storm. So really nicely played from these guys. Hopefully a sign of more things to come. And of course, as the caster said, it's their first win. So let's see if they can keep that momentum going.
Yeah, looking nice and clean from these guys. So let's see what they can do in the next 5 games. We will be back in a few minutes though, gang, because we need to take a short break. When we come back, more about game number 7.
Watch me arrive. Watch me arrive. Watch me arrive.
2 teammates have his back. Where's Nash? Gets the drop on the Marion. Stays alive. They're targeting up Vanya. 3v1.
I got hit with that one off. I'm popping a medbit. Wait, short. I got 6 builds? No, max up. Wait, if you're mid play. 100! 100! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! And I don't know how to feel about it.
You're not used to losing. Getting beaten?
Not like this! These players are just so locked in.
Could it be the milk?
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. Stay there.
Welcome back to day 2 of the FNCS Europe Major 1 finals, and we just saw Shawful and Repairs take the first victory royale of today. So I'll be curious to see where that gets them within the top 10, because they were sat in 11th before we kicked off today's action. And action we saw in our first game at 11-2K, because it was exciting to see Thomas and Focus managing to overcome the challenge of heading to a zone on the other side of the map. Usually they use that as an excuse to not pull off a great game, but they had 10 eliminations, made it to 4th. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, look, I think, Thomas and Focus obviously were asking for better zones here in day 2. they would have obviously seen that zone mini and gone, all right, we're not going to get our better zones. We just got to do this ourselves. We got to put our tournament in our own hands. And the one thing I said about these guys yesterday was that you're not going to be more consistent than Sky and Scroll. And so how can you beat them? You have to outfrag them. And the way they came into this game, they were hitting shots. They were looking to be aggressive. They picked up a double-digit elim game. Those are the types of games they need to keep having if they have any chance of catching up to first place.
Yeah, 10 eliminations is absolutely huge. 4th place in that game. Sky and Scroll had a 7th place with 4 eliminations. So they've actually beaten them in that game, which is absolutely huge for them. And I think it's kind of unfortunate for Thomas and Focus, because if it wasn't that Sky and Scroll were actually so good, actually took out Sky there, of course, as well. If it wasn't that Sky and Scroll were so good, they'd probably be on track to win this FNCS, because when you look at the teams above them in terms of Chino and Pablo, they've had fortunate zones. So it's like they haven't necessarily proved themselves as well when it comes to further zones. It's just really unfortunate for them that Sky and Scroll just doing so well at the moment. Things can change though, and if that first game's anything to go by, they did better than them. So how's things going to change out the rest of the games?
Yeah, what did go wrong for Sky and Scroll in that last game, Mini Minor? They made it. They made an appearance in the end game. Is it just like a resource situation?
Yeah, everything was looking good. I mean, we saw it in the mid game. We saw them inside of the storm, like I sort of talked about previously. Ultimately, Scroll went down, and usually it is Scroll that's been most successful with these solo clutches, Levin. It was left to Sky. He had no materials, couldn't find his way around. And I think probably this duo would rather have Scroll in that situation, but a decent game nevertheless.
Yeah, I think either one of them, I think is more than capable. I think we saw in the heats, it was Sky that was solo clutching a bit more than Scroll, right? So I think either one of them is comfortable.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I don't think this is the worst game in the world for them. I think this is actually fine. Yeah, they couldn't find the win condition. Obviously, Sky is forced to solo clutch. It was a difficult zone to do so, especially how Hype were playing it. But I think you'd still be happy with how that game played out, especially as far as, Chino and Pablo are concerned, and Chino going down and maybe not having the best of games there.
Yeah, what happened, Levin? We saw Pablo doing this classic solo clutch, but why did he end up in that situation?
It was quite unfortunate. It was this rotation here. They were the last ones to go. And so there's people looking backside. Chino just gets sprayed out. Unfortunate, because the setup looks like what we had seen from them yesterday, where they're just looking like they're going to have another really good game and keep up with Sky and Scroll. But Pablo had to clutch up, and as though he is one of the better solo clutches in this lobby, if you ask Destiny Jesus, he might tell you he's one of the best of all time. He wasn't quite able to salvage enough points, right, to really make it happen. And so still a good game from Pablo, able to stay up as long as he did. Chino, unfortunate to go down there. The timing on that rotation was really just what got them.
Yeah, it sort of reminds me of their game 3 from yesterday when we had that wonky land pull. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they went down in exactly the same way. And I'm pretty sure it was Chino in that exact same situation where they tried to use one of those overdrive grenades at the wrong time. They sort of got dropped down. Of course, they didn't take full damage, but they were just on show to the rest of the lobby that had already advanced forward. So I think there's a problem there that they're having. Hopefully they can fix it, though. And if they get different zones, maybe we'll see different players from them. But still not the worst game ever for them. Maintains their spot in second.
Well, let's take a look at the leaderboard again, because I want to see where Sias and Scary, our Spanish duo, are. Because Mini Minor, it wasn't a great game for them. It's amazing. It really speaks volumes of their performance yesterday, that they've only gone down one place because they had a horrible off-spawn.
Well, it's their worst game. It is the first knock that we've seen from these guys, their first problem, and they went down here, Levin, in quite surprising fashion, especially considering how much we were hyping them up at the beginning of the day.
Yeah, we were bigging them up for their fighting, and then they just allow Azat to isolate the 1v1, and he didn't miss the shots. And then Scary's on the back end. He tries to get, Sias back up, right? And they look for the revive in the mist, and Azat was not letting it happen. Jumps in the box, one pump, bang, back to the lobby for the Spaniards. A game to forget, but hopefully not a sign of what's to come. We saw them win a lot of those fights. Like that's just a fight that they would have won and cleaned up really quickly yesterday. A bad sign to start the day.
I'm excited about it now, though, because it's like, sorry, Frankie, because it's like, it's something we haven't seen from these guys yet this weekend. And you spoke about it at the beginning of the day, Levin. These guys want to make sure they're not going to be the anomaly. They're not going to be the team that fall off after day one. So how are they going to react now? They haven't been in this situation before when we look at their entire careers, and they haven't been in this situation before when we look at just this weekend. So this is going to be a really exciting team to watch now.
I mean, it must be so difficult when you are outperforming other people's expectations of you, and suddenly you're like, actually, this is reality. We could do this, but now all we need to do is almost like not get ahead of ourselves and not let the nerves set in. And I wonder if that's something on their minds, because they know they should make it to Dusseldorf, but now they know that they could also win $120,000, Levin.
I mean, yeah, it's a lot of pressure, right? And so when you're the team that was winning a bunch of fights and now, you know, you go into your first important fight the next day and it just doesn't quite work for you, do you start to question yourself? Do they now think, actually, no, maybe we shouldn't be as aggressive as we were yesterday? And that ends up leading to the decline of the performances. I wonder where their mentality is at in that regard.
And they had a favorable zone as well. It's like another missed opportunity. We spoke about it a little bit yesterday, these missed opportunities for these teams. They're going to be looking at that now, where that zone ended up, and be like, oh, if only we won that fight. But hopefully it doesn't knock them down too much.
Who are we looking at then going into this next game? Who are we expecting to really step things up? Say, hypothetically, we finally get a West pulling zone mini minor.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look at
Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's going to be their moment to sort of have a massive game and sort of close the gap in that first phase. It's going to be big for me to look at Pablo and Chino to see if we do get that West zone, because the one time they did have a West zone, it wasn't great for them. So we're sort of looking at different teams up there for different reasons as well. And even sort of further on down the leaderboard, excited to see that sort of section as well, as see how that develops when we look at that top 20.
Can I say it's really nice to see Thomas back in duos and back on form as well, because I feel like we're getting the Thomas that we know and love and provides so many exciting moments. And I feel like we missed out on that last year. So I'm going to savor these last 5 games and see what all the players here in Europe can bring us as we head back to Taco and Takata.
Thank you, Frankie. Look, Thomas HD and Focus were not the only ones that had over 10 eliminations coming from the west side of zone with that east pull in the last match. Nebs, Nathan as well. But I want to keep my eyes on Shark and Teeny. They're in 14th now. Going into that game, they were 21st. They've jumped up to 14th. We weren't seeing them play as confident against Huddy and Fishy. Huddy Fishy did go down without getting not many points at all. And the thing is, Shark Teeny don't only want to prove themselves with the performances leading into these major finals, but they want to make sure that Huddy and Fishy do not make it to the Summit 1. The issue is, Taco, they have to confirm their spot themselves first.
I just love that they keep playing leapfrog with the placements on the leaderboard, but right now we'll happen to wait to see what Game 8 has in store. And as you can expect, Takata, that fight over by Wonky, it is still going to be a very open-ended conversation, but there has been a lot of shuffling taking place around the map. We're getting a nice little overview, checking in. Swizzy, Pixie, Truly, Gonzo. Nobody would have anticipated this to be so heavily against Swizzy and Pixie, but they're looking to restore honor in their name. Truly, though, going to be able to strike back. It's a 1-for-1 exchange, elimination ring out. Swizzy has the Iron Pump, though, just looking to try and chase down Truly, but you have to imagine this is only going to draw another third-party intervention soon enough. Swizzy just trying to track down this final elimination as quickly as possible. He knows the clock is working against him. He knows Haijo, Keto, they might be hot on the trail here, already trying to take the teleporter to cut them off in those tunnels. And Truly, he's got weapons, but that's about it. He needs some shield. The HP department, so much more heavily in Swizzy's favor. Trying to see if he can get an overhead view, but neither of these solos has very much material to work with, and that's the biggest reason why it's at such a standstill.
You were alluding to it earlier, too. This is just the first part of the battle. Even if either player here comes out on top, there still could be more rotating in through the portals down below. So Swizzy knows that this fight has to be ended quickly, and now's the chance to do it. First shot connects, one more needed, as Truly is put into panic. Swizzy 170 effective HP, and is going to actually not connect that shot, and this fight is just continuing to stagger. You can see in the mini-map bottom right, there's already another team close by.
Truly just going to use that overdrive effect, but Swizzy is ready to collapse, and he finally connects the final shot. Swizzy and Pixie have technically come out on top, but it might be a short-lived victory because Keto, Haijo, they're already paced up in those tunnels. So even after getting the reboot off onto Pixie, it's only a matter of time before they have to contend with the duo that's directly underneath them.
Looking back at Wonky Land, we saw a slow start to the match in Game 7. I think it was third zone Taco. They were still here. Farman kind of shooting back and forth. I don't even know which zone they ended up rotating in, but I mean, they do have the wonky wheel. Teeny Shark now, though, they really want to be able to close this fight off quicker.
Teeny also just trying to bait out this chest. Huddy Fishy, though, fully aware of the fact that their opponents are very likely just slinking around Wonky Land, waiting for the perfect ambush. But Teeny, you gotta be very cautious here because it's still a 2 versus 1, technically speaking. Shark can provide some support, but he's gotta be quick with it. Doesn't want to leave his teammate Teeny out by himself for too long, especially knowing that Twek is lingering too. But Nebs, Nathan, Humble Hills has been very active since the secondary half of yesterday, and they've actually been eliminated. The surprise contest, not so much a surprise here in day 2 after all, but it's just a matter of fact that another leaderboard team taken out very early on.
They had such a big game too. 11 eliminations, 2nd place. What a devastating finish. We'll see if they can come back from that now. Chino Pablo, on the other hand, had quite a nice start to the day and also looking, as it seems, start to the match with a quick elimination.
Speed on Dallas over there. The overdrive grenade pump finish, but Swizzy loses Pixie one more time. The reboot did draw that extra company that was waiting underneath. Hydro, though, sent him to not a total panic, but it is a bit awkward here now, because you would have anticipated that they would have been in a much more favorable spot to try and take out both Swizzy and Pixie simultaneously. Instead, Swizzy, he's just playing like this is everything, because it is when you think about it. They have such a daunting day ahead of them, Takada. They need so many points that they want to even try and consider top 20. So these eliminations that Swizzy's able to collect, they're going to need so many more of them, along with some strong placements. I don't want to call it impossible, because we've seen crazy things happen before in set lobby finals, but it is just such an uphill battle for those two to try and make it back for the LAN contention.
It's about like 50 points a game-ish. I mean, Levin was speaking about it. We said the estimate's 250 to 300 points, 5 end games, but what we mean by an end game, it's a top 5 with 4 eliminations. So getting that 5 out of 6 games today, well, I mean, we already had game 1, so they've already kind of got to step it up a little bit, but a long road ahead of them for Sky and Scroll on the other end. They've already continued with the consistency. The only thing that can danger them is if the other duos in the kind of top 3 range continue to get very high elimination matches, but it's just going to be so difficult to beat Sky and Scroll's consistency.
I'm just not over the fact of thinking that when the Major One Summit LAN does happen in Dusseldorf, that there is a very realistic possibility we're not going to see anyone from our global championship trio participate in it. It is heartbreaking to an extent, especially for, obviously, you know, the global championship individuals, but a new era in EU, that's for sure. Focus, Thomas, they're just trying to see if they can replicate some of that Game 7 success. They're going to need those types of games to stack up here. They want to see if they can overthrow Sky and Scroll after their Game 1 performances yesterday.
Pico Malabuca, they found some eliminations on the Huddy Fishy in the last match when they rotated through. They've already kicked it off with 2 as well. They dropped down 2 placements on the leaderboard after game 1, but they're still in a comfortable position. 5 matches left to close out these major finals.
Stary lurking. Not going to give away his position just yet. Doesn't have... Typically, you would want to see the set duo go for that 3-2-1 beam. Might not have felt as confident in being able to bring down Thomas if it's only him sending those shots forward. Adapted. Also going to continue. Try and wrap around here. Meet up with Dexteri, but the opportunity might have just missed them. And now Twek might even be able to get overhead. Look back, though, into what Sky and Scroll are getting up to. It's not just the Surge base, it's eliminations, and that is a very big blow to achieve, by the way. I mean, Sky and Scroll are doing everything in their power to control their own destiny at this point.
They really are. I mean, see how far they've come so far, and I want to see them. You know, they have no FNCS finals titles. Not only win an FNCS, but also continue forwards in to the Summit 1 LAN at Dusseldorf.
I know a comment that Mini made earlier before we even kicked off the day is that when he was going through some of the replays here with Sky and Scroll, one thing that they definitely love to do is commit to these Storm-sided plays where they'll spend a decent amount of time in Storm, really not getting a move on until 4th or 5th zone. And I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's been working out for them wonderfully, and so they're able to still just keep tabs of their surge. There's no reason for them to try and thwart themselves in the process. Skyjump and Momsy just trying to see what's going to be the catalyst for their performance here today. But they know that they've really got to try and find their rhythm soon enough. Everybody wants to make sure that they are at least within that top 20 on the leaderboard for the Summit LAN qual.
Mini Miner brought it up. Saya Scary, their worst match, coming from their best performance in all their time playing Fortnite. I'm just hoping we see a strong mental from them now and see them continue like we saw them yesterday. I mean, the pressure is on them. We don't want to see them drop down. Thomas and Focus, though, if they keep up the way they started today, we can quickly see them pushing up that top 3. And so far, it's looking like they're going to continue.
Hey, even if the zones aren't in their favor, they've clearly got other intentions for how to get the job done. Nice elimination there. Set them up 5-5-5, moving into the next couple of zones. Surefour-M repairs, though, looking much more like a dark horse contender for this weekend, Takata. Especially after finding that Victor Royale in the last match. They've definitely set themselves into a pretty solid position here for the leaderboard overall. Now it's just about making sure that they continue to build on some of the points that they started to sort of gather up in that Game 7. Size and Scary, though, like to see them still being a little bit more reserved, switching things up. You know, maybe you came out a little bit too hot off the gate, right? A little too excited for Game 7. Realize, okay, well, maybe we can get fraggy, but, you know, maybe the off-spawn surprise con it isn't exactly where we want to hedge our bets. So I like that they're just opting to fall back a little bit here. Sky Scroll, though, they're ready to make their move. It's going to be a dead side zone approach.
They'll do their thing as we are still in Wonky Land. Sharktini. No elims on the board, you can see. It's been pretty peaceful here. As I think they're gonna decide to finally make their rotate come through. I was mentioning in the last game, Wonky is one of the POIs where you do have a bit of help in terms of rotating out with that wonky wheel, but I'm looking to see a big game from Sharktini. I mean, you talked about Wonky Land being a splittable POI. We know they don't want to do it, but it seems like their focus right now is just kind of cementing themselves a good spot on the leaderboard before they start playing like we've seen them play throughout the season.
Sharktini actually cutting across over to Frozen Shard. Skyjump Mumsy staring by, but take the rift. They're not going to wait. Other intentions aside from the wheel. Wonder if they even knew that Shakos and Tilio were actually waiting at the bottom of that Wonky Land wheel. Maybe that was a concern for them, that they didn't want to get tagged up. So they were going for that deeper rotation. But right now, Yapko, Panzer. Hopefully this time, there's nobody to play spoiler to their position. But that's part of the dangers that always occur, I think, in a set lobby finals, where you know that there's going to be more than one team that starts to get a little bit desperate for their surge when they're underneath that threshold.
Just to see how Thomas and Focus are looking now. so far. They don't want to do anything too risky, just trying to kind of stay ahead of the zone here. Let it pull towards them. In terms of damage, looks like they're sitting quite comfortably. I do see Kamihari close by. A lot of them kicking off yesterday, but today, seen nothing so far.
So there's a lot of action taking place underneath Thomas and Focus. Faded and Khan. Handful of other teams kind of sandwiched between where Thomas Focus are at and Kamihari. One of those big duos is bound to get involved soon enough here. Shark, Teeny, 81 above right now. Both with a couple of eliminations, right? 2 for the pairing. So they were able to find something after they left Frozen Shard. Just wonder who it was that they actually managed to sort of sneak up on. But they'll make their way into this next edge of zone. They're gonna stick to the lower end. Do have a chance to look back now, and it's Momsy and Skyjump after all. The intentions behind that Frozen Shard play was likely just to cut off the Frenchies, and that is a tough blow for Skyjump and Momsy.
Yeah. On the contrary, though, Shark and Teeny getting more and more set up for this late. Beamish Storm, 2 elims on the board. I wonder if it was from their kind of mix-up off spawn strategy, but either way, they've been continuing the momentum from yesterday. They had a rough start to day 1. They ended with a big match, and now going into day 2, they're continuing their success. They actually did take out iFrozy and Azat in the early game, so showing the dominance from previous drops they've kind of had throughout this tournament.
Also just making it very clear that if they've marked somewhere, they likely have intentions to visit it eventually. And for Azat and iFrozy, while they defended it one time, Four Fields is going to continue to be, I think, a pretty big point of contention for the remainder of our matches here today. But the lobby starting to close in. Teams, some kind of scattered around the outskirts of the zone, all different directions, but you can see those surges lighting up. Handful of different teams here now. Malibuca and Vico. While we didn't necessarily get to see too many overviews from their performances yesterday, one thing's for sure, Vico was definitely getting very active with dealing damage.
Whoa.
But Thomas, he's just sent wiggling around inside of his own box. Him and Focus brought so incredibly low. Part of the problem too, when we last saw them kind of tanking up those ticks of storm, they didn't have much white heals. They really only had splashes and a single chug jug. So now they've really got to depend on finding a refresh here, but Focus very low on his shields. Thomas maybe going to be able to take over the leading charge there for aggression. Malibuca, Vico, on the other hand, just trying to apply some pressure, prevent any other teams from kind of encroaching on their position. They know there's at least 1 or 2 duos hurting nearby, but not enough for them to get a move on just yet.
Yeah, they also pulled quite literally the furthest zone they could here. Shark and Teeny, on the contrary, the perfect pull. They're capitalizing on it. Swizzy, Pixie as well. They actually got 48 points in the last match. We said they need 50 points a game if they want to make it to Dusseldorf. Seeing them in the end game, both with HP, I've got faith.
This might be best case scenario too for Malibuca and Vico. All those duos that just sent themselves scattering forward. Yapko, Panzer in a heavy world of hurt right now. Panzer just trying to outlast it with this Chug Jug. Focus, the only one left standing right now between himself and Thomas. And as a solo, he's at least got the Mythic Pump to work with. His only form of ability, though, a singular overdrive grenade, and he's 240 below. He has to find a shot. He has to do it now. Panzer won't be able to connect. He's going to be cleared out of the lobby. But Focus, all eyes on you currently. Chat, Flixie, just behind him. He's going to opt to try, see if he can wiggle his way forward. Only 4 more players, and he might be saved. But you never want to leave it up to the rest of the lobby. But Malibuca, Vico, I thought it'd be beneficial, them being ahead of the rest of the pack, scattering in towards their direction. Instead, it looks like they've been overwhelmed. Now they're sitting underneath the surge threshold. Malibuca has to find a big pump shot to connect. Otherwise, the surge ticks will take him out entirely. Him and Focus both just trying to see who's going to be the first to find that opening blow. But Focus, Mali, saved by the players in the lobby, eliminating themselves essentially. Surge won't work against them, but they are still in a dire situation. Both of these teams fighting for their placements on the leaderboard. They've got positions to defend, but it's Malabuka taken out by Focus. Siphon just in the nick of time. And that is still the worst case scenario here now, though, for Mally. So you has to wait, see what happens next.
Whoa. What a way to go down for Thomas HD2. This just shows that even the best of the best in EU are struggling with this net. Surge forcing themselves in situations where they have to take those risks. Syaz now is actually left alone despite that elimination on
my
Thomas
gosh.
HD. And both Huddy Fishy and Sharktini are second height and full height. From Wonky Land to the end game, this battle, it never ends.
But Shark and Teeny, Huddy, Fishy, neither of them really seemed all that set in terms of material. Huddy, Fishy, they might have the high ground for the time being, but with the way that the zone is pulling over a little bit of elevation shifts, they might have to layer transition eventually. They're gonna need to drop here. Syaz tried to go up, but that elevation shift brings him down instead. Shark, big blow against Sky there. Gonna keep him incredibly low, and now Teeny's ready to go up. Couple of opening tags there onto Huddy and Fishy, and Huddy's been dropped. Shark gets credit for it. Fishy all by his lonesome. He'll be forced to try and escape, but he's not gonna get away. Not this time. Shark and Teeny have total control of the high ground.
This is what we've been waiting for. Sharktini, they couldn't close out the fight in Wonky Land, but now in the late game, not only have they overthrown height, it's against the team that's contesting them. They do not want to give them a shot at the Major 1 LAN. Chino trying to do what he can to clutch up. Sky Scroll continue on the low ground. They got to be careful, though. A refresh comes through, and now the rotation continues forwards.
But Sky and Scroll, they are more than comfortable here in the lower layers. We saw how fruitful it was for them in yesterday's performance. They did a great job at just controlling the low ground. Anybody that was trying to layer swap last second always had to deal with them, and Chino left by himself. Pablo left behind. Chino trying to do what he can to connect some additional tags here. Siphon would go a long way for him. He's gonna send himself straight towards the front side, low. Swizzy also trying to see if he can make it happen. He's been clawing his way through this match since the beginning, Takada. The fact that he's still standing as a solo is impressive enough as is. But Chino, very similar position, utilizing the building space now. On the other side of the wall, Pears gets the first shot. They were both waiting to connect and Scroll. Sky, this is their best opportunity now to continue trying to extend their lead, but Sky gets put down. Repairs waiting in the wings. They are so ready to overtake these teams on the leaderboard, but you gotta make sure that you're looking every direction here because teams sneaking up just behind, and it's Shark, it's Teeny. We lost sight of them on the high ground, but they didn't lose sight of the players in the lobby. They're bringing this one home.
This is what we've been waiting for. 12 eliminations for Shark and Teeny. Frankie, Levin, Mini, I know you're gonna have smiles on your face.
There has been a revenge narrative all weekend between Shark and Teeny and Hutty and FishyX at Wonky Land. And we thought that this one was probably going to end by the mid-game, given that they were so stubbornly refusing to leave until there was a victor. But then they decided it on height, Levin.
I was so excited. As soon as we got that drone shot and we saw who was on height, who was on second height, I knew we were getting one thing and one thing only, Mini, and that was gonna be cinema. At the end of the day, you don't go swimming if you're not ready to swim with the Sharks. And as soon as those two went up for height, I said, yeah, man, they're ready for the comeback. That's what they're looking for. Big pop-off games. That's what we want to see from people. Of course, Mini, I like seeing, you know, people get third place 4 limbs consistently game after game. But what I like more is seeing Shark and Teeny getting a win with 12 limbs. That is what we want to be seeing.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge. So I'm just looking at, it's actually only their second top 10 overall over this weekend. They got 4th in the first game, and then it was, of course, that win right there. Absolutely huge for this team. Going to do them wonders in terms of the leaderboard, but also in terms of their confidence as well, just proving that they are here to play. They would have fixed a couple of those mistakes maybe from yesterday, those mid-game off-spawn sort of situations that they found themselves in. And I think the height take just individually was really, really impressive. I was really excited when these guys went up. We were sort of excited in the back, and the way that they went and took height, I think we might not get to see it, but it's I love the way that they went about it because they actually used the new sort of ADS whilst up in the air feature. I think it was Shark that did it, just to absolutely beam. Yeah, he had that Nemesis rival, just to absolutely beam. I think it was Hutty all the way up on height, and that's not something that you could have done previously in previous seasons. But the knowledge of that was super useful, and of course, when they're in this situation, there's only one eventual outcome.
Yeah, I'm glad we saw both of them sort of popping off, right, as far as Shark and Teamy, because obviously Shark gets all the hype. But I think people forget just how good Teamy is, right? The best controller player in the world for a reason. I know Reet over on NA might be feeling a way about me saying that, but you have two incredibly talented players who ultimately we've just not seen the best of them over the first sort of 6 games we saw yesterday. And so hopefully now this is the boost they need, the momentum they need to know. Even in situations where the Osborne at Wonky is still a bit messy and we're still stuck in stagnating fighting there, we can have end games like that to make up for it.
Well, they're currently 6th on the leaderboard. They are 219 points behind our leaders, Sky and Skrull. We'll get to see if they can make even more gains in our next game after the break.
No love songs, just a war cry by. This is my world, watch me arrive. Watch me arrive. Watch me arrive. Watch me arrive.
Two teammates have his back. Smash gets the drop on the Marion, stays alive. They're targeting up Vanya. 3v1.
I got hit with that one off. I'm popping in medbit. Wait, short. Got 6 builds? No, max up. Wait, if you're mid, wait. 100! 100! Oh my god! No! Oh my god! Oh my god! And I don't know how to feel about it.
You're not used to losing. Getting beaten?
Not like this! These players are just so locked in.
Could it be the milk? Stay there.
Welcome back to FNCS Europe. It's the Major 1 finals, and there's just 4 more games until we crown our first winners of the year. And Levin, it's really heating up on the leaderboard right now, and there's one duo who remain confident as ever, and that is Sky and Skrull. They have the highest limbs and highest average placement as well. So this is a team that's not just playing it safe.
No, and they, again, continue to showcase the issue that anyone else in this lobby is going to have when trying to catch up with them, Mini. How do you stop a team that is just going to keep getting these top 5s, keep getting deep into these end games, and in many cases now as well, are going to be out fragging you in these end games as well, right? This game was a second place 8 elim game where you know, what do you do to catch up? I mean, it's so difficult. They just really have a lock on the low ground. Nobody seems to be able to play it better than them right now in EU, and I don't see that changing in the next 4 games.
It's really nice to see them playing the low ground so well as well. It's nice to see a team have an identity. I feel like it's not something that we've associated with teams necessarily previously as much, or at least not as obviously as we can see right here with Sky and Scroll. And you're absolutely right. I mean, it's so difficult to catch up to them because they're just covering all bases so well. They're finding eliminations whilst being super consistent. And for teams that are trying to catch them up, Chino and Pablo, Focus and Thomas HD, what do you actually do? Of course, weren't able to win this game, but again, another unfavorable zone. Maybe our hair will be grey by the time we get a West zone this weekend, but it's just going to be unstoppable for them. And they've nearly sort of brought back that sort of 90-point gap as well. What is that? Is that like 80 points? Unbelievable right now.
Yeah, it's absolutely unbelievable from these guys. It's 82 points, I believe, if I've done the maths right. So it is a stunning performance from these guys. And the thing is, sometimes with Joros, we'd be questioning, we'd be going, well, are they able to maintain this lead? But with Sky and Scroll, it's almost guaranteed that they're going to increase it. But it's not guaranteed for Pablo and Chino that they are going to be able to maintain the distance between second and third mini-minor.
Yeah, they've still been doing very good though. I mean, it's a nice end game for them. They managed to pick up a couple of eliminations here as well. Again, the zone right on their drop spot at Sandy Strip, of course. But this is exactly what we expect to see from these guys, taking advantage of these zones. Because yes, I'm sure we will get a different sort of zone soon, but they need to make the most of it when they're still getting the zones right now, and they did so very well here.
Yeah, I mean, somebody clearly out there really wants us to have a close finish here in some degree, right? Because these guys are going to continue to get those beneficial zones, but they play them well. And so I know people will banter them and say, oh, you guys had all the zones, whatever. They're playing them well. There's other players who are getting favorable zones, ain't doing anything similar to what these guys are able to produce.
And Surefour and Repairs, it almost looked like they were going to reproduce a victory royale, Levin. I'm so impressed by the way that these guys are stepping things up on day 2.
Absolutely. Again, the theme of this season has been what? It's been these newer names, these newer talents, people who you maybe weren't expecting to pop off and showcase what they can do. And I think these guys exemplify that excellently, right? This moment here between Chino and Repairs, it was like, who's going to get the jump? You usually expect the person with the right-hand peak there to win, but Repairs, again, showcasing just why they have been so formidable across these 2 days so far. I'm very excited. Again, I'm very excited to see, sort of what the limit is for these guys. At the end of the day, we're going to expect to see these guys at this point now make it to the Summit LAN. Will they be able to replicate this performance and surprise some of the best players in other regions over the course of those games?
Well, listen, it's time for Legends Watch because Swizzy and Pixie, they made it to a couple of endgames now back-to-back. The question is, were they good enough endgames to move them substantially up the leaderboard? They've not made it into the top 20 yet, but on page 3, you can see them there up a whopping 14 places, 25. Now, Dusseldorf is looking like a reality, Levin.
Yes, and this is the thing. When you have elite players, and that's what these guys are, regardless of what we saw yesterday, when you have elite players, you can't count them out. I love the approach they've taken to today's off spawns mini, where yesterday they lost a couple of spawns, at Dark Dominion, and so they decided, okay, we're gonna just try and split it, and then that's where they ran into more problems. Today, they've just been taking the fight off spawn. They're just like, no, we're gonna fight you guys. We're gonna take the fight, truly Gonzo, whatever you guys wanna do, we will fight you, no problems asked. They've been winning the fights, even in that last game, right? They ended up with what? A really good game where the start of the game was actually rough because they have to reboot Pixie. Then when Pixie gets rebooted, other teams come in, third party them, Pixie goes down again, he gets rebooted again, and they're still able to have a good game. And so that shows you that they've come into today completely changed, completely renewed, and they're going to be a threat for the rest of the day.
Levin, who's coaching these guys at the moment?
Not sure, can't remember.
They need like a motivational voice in their ear to remind them they are literally the number 1 and number 2 placing players at the Global Championships from last year. Because mini-minors, sometimes I'm thinking maybe it's just their confidence that's not there. They just need a reminder of the fact that they're 2 of the best fraggers in Europe.
Yeah, potentially. I think day 1 yesterday was a big shock to them. And what I've always said in Fortnite is the best teams will play well on day 1, but the better teams will VOD and do even better on day 2. And that's what these guys are sort of epitomizing right now. You can see them. They went back in replays last night. They looked at what went wrong. They didn't try to change too much on day 1. They tried to stick to their guns. Didn't work out. Now today, things have shifted. They're changing up their game plan. And I'm looking at their placements, 8th and then a 4th. They didn't get a top 10 yesterday. Not just that, they didn't get a top 35 yesterday. Their best placement was a 35th. So it's like they completely flipped the script on what they were performing like, and now they're in 25th, so that's going to be huge for them, hopefully qualifying here through here.
I'd like to say the only way is up, but nothing is guaranteed in Fortnite. Let's head over to Taco and Takata for game number 9.
Look, Swizzy and Pixie knew that they were in for a grueling battle here today, Takata, but it is their last chance to try and overcome the odds and see if they can put themselves into a position where they are just inside of that top 20 qual metric for the Major 1 Summit LAN.
Yep, game 1, they got 48 points. Game 2, they got 76 points. And what they needed today was an average of 50 points every single game. Now, if they get very big point games, obviously that average can go down. Having a 76-point game in the 8th match, I'm liking how things are looking, but it can change depending on how that off spawn goes. But for Shark and Teeny, it is looking brighter and brighter. A massive win, 12 eliminations. Let's see if that changes the confidence for them in the early game. The next game, number 9, is ready to go.
And just general overview right now. You can see the bus path transcending downwards. Wonky Land. While we haven't seen that immediate 50-50 off spawn so far here today, with Shark and Teeny's last victory royale in game number 8, it would not surprise me in the slightest to see them maybe offer a little bit more aggression earlier on, but for right now, northern directions for Teeny. He's actually opted to take control of this like little castle area just north of the POI, and Shark also a little bit deeper north. Maybe their concern is we saw Twek kind of poking his head on over from Wonky from Toy Box Talk, so that could be a big part of the reason why. But Swizzy, 1 elimination already, and we get a chance to revisit what went wrong here for Truly. Just a really proactive elim there out of Swizzy, and like the desk already touched on, they just decided, you know what, it's our turn to actually just start throwing punches. And I feel like for Truly and Gonzo, they're just like, wait, hold up, timeout. When did you guys start punching back?
Yeah, it's already 4 teams though at Dark Dominion, so we'll see how it continues as Nebs and Nathan had a very big game to kick off the day, but then fell short in the next match, 47th place, and now we're here. Game 9, 3rd match of the day, and Nebs and Nathan once again back to back, getting eliminated off spawn, coming from an 11 elimination second. This is not what you want to see, but something you do like seeing. It's Shark Teeny playing aggressive. Huddy Fishy have to lock in here.
But right now, Huddy and Fishy do have a little bit better control over the vending machines, but for how long can they actually keep Shark and Teeny out? Huddy looking to see if he can break some of their wall from a different angle. Fishy does get a nice shot onto Shark. That's going to drop him incredibly low. Shark will have to wait and see. Fortunately, they do have splashes to work with. Teeny also, I believe he just split some of his mats there. So Huddy, Fishy, trying to gather up whatever else they might be able to use here to put themselves into a winning position. But Shark Teeny, you can tell just how hungry they are for this exchange. They want to wipe out Huddy and Fishy, and they might be able to do it. Huddy, though, doing a great job pulling back Fishy, actually forcing Shark to wait despite taking a big chunk out of Huddy's HP. He's not going to be able to close in fully just because of the backup from Fishy, but I might have spoken too soon. Teeny with a different angle. He brings down Huddy, who was already so incredibly low. Now it's all about collapsing onto Fishy, but Fishy making sure it's not easy. It doesn't matter though. Jaws theme song in real life here. Shark and Teeny kicking Huddy and Fishy back to the battle bus. They were already in 19th place heading into this leaderboard, and that's bound to drop even further outside of that land qual.
Instant change in confidence coming through that win. You could tell it was looking a little iffy starting off the day of them being outside of qualifying range to Dusseldorf. They quickly pushed themselves up at the top 15, and now after that win, they are back in business. This is the Shark and Teeny we were expecting in the major finals after an underperformance in day 1. Now they're back in action. Huddy Fishy actually completely ran out of mats in that engagement, so they were constantly applying pressure. Pablo and Chino now, they are still in 2nd place. They've gotten top 10 in every match today. but we know that they want that first place.
Of course, hungry for yet another FNCS title. Gino and Pablo. They're going to set up. They've got a line of sight onto Aza and Ifrozi. They are going to take their opportunity to get at least one tag in, but there is, of course, always action taking place elsewhere on the map. And Zany, look at this setup. Hydro and Keto just shut down. They've been lords of the tunnels for the most part, hanging out by Dark Dominion and other teams. When they hit those VODs, when they hit the replay staccato, they're bound to catch wind of what's actually taking place and do their own sort of ambush maneuvers. And that's exactly the kind of thing that I think even the most experienced teams would still struggle with here today.
Scary place to be in. Swizzy and Pixie felt it firsthand yesterday, but going a lot better today. Thomas HC and Focus. It wasn't a terrible match, but it wasn't what they needed to get what they truly want. The first place finish, 15th to Elims. Now here in the 9th match, I believe it was a mix of kind of a rotate where Thomas got caught off guard by Syaz, and then also just being a little low on Surge. It's just so difficult when even the most experienced players in the lobby cannot handle this net Surge.
Big contributing factor to that is just knowing every single duo out here is trying to reevaluate, figure out what sort of strategy do we need to do to put ourselves in the best position to be above that Surge metric. Vico Malabuca. Well, we have seen glimpses of greatness from this duo. For the most part, it has been relatively quiet. And they've done a decent job at least remaining inside of that top 10 portion of the leaderboard, but it's just one of those instances where you're kind of just waiting for like the what next factor. You're waiting to see the big pop-off really from that team.
Moneymaker for 9. Sitting in 31st right now. I mean, 128 points. They're actually not too far from top 20. They would need a big game. But these early game fights, they mean so much. You just cannot go down here.
Faded and Khan. Not sure if the intention was to go for an ambush here against iDrop and Medius, but iDrop and Medius have been pretty much unconned at Latte this entire series so far. And after the day one performance didn't exactly go how they would have pictured it or preferred it to, I'm almost much more inclined to believe that there's going to be duos like Faded and Khan and whatnot that opt to maybe try and throw themselves into Latte's potential area to contest. Deemish Darm, though, doing more of the same of what they've been after. Started the first couple of lobbies here today, checking out the eastern section of the map, and now they're back out west. Pretty familiar sightseeing, though, for these two, given that their original starting point had been Tip Top Terrace once upon a time before the map shifted a bit, and now, without a set drop, they're really just, I wouldn't call them scavengers, because I do think that they do a pretty solid job at cleaning up the teams that they fight and extending their own positions for rotations and whatnot in a game. But it is scary when you have a team that's just vaguely rolling around the map and you're not really sure where they're going to be next.
I'm kind of wondering why they switched, though. They got 5th place, 8 Elims in the last match, 6 Elims 15th in the match before that. Like, it's not like it was going too bad against Zot and Ifrozi, but, you know, they're just continuing with their rhythm, so we'll see how it does play out. I mean, they're both up right now, so it didn't go terribly wrong either. Kamihari, very rough start of the day. Currently in 18th place. They went down 29th, 25th. Not the matches that you would have liked to see from this duo. We saw them have some pretty big ones yesterday, so hopefully they can make a change here.
No Riley and Reason, another one of our duos, though, all day yesterday. They were having to deal with a pretty set 50-50 all-spawn fight. But the scenes have shifted a bit for this duo here today. It's one thing, though, to make it to the end game. It's another to convert that end game into a performance that would net you points inside of the leaderboard for that top 20 position at Summit 1 LAN. Tilio and Shakos, though, I don't think they know what's coming next. This is starting to get real spooky. Darm and Deemish, very content right now over by Tree Chop Timbermill. They're healing up. Got the vending machines. Afford to expend a little bit more time here, but Shakos and Tilio will catch wind of this duo the moment that they mosey on out of the buildings here. And it's not just one, but potentially even another duo. Thought another team might have had an angle in onto this engagement, but instead, Shakos, Tilio, they got what they were after, the tags. They want to keep moving forward.
Sky Scroll, almost 100 points ahead. A little less against Chino Pablo. They're just continuing to kind of slowly increase that gap as the matches go on. And the issue is I don't really see them slowing down. It's almost the opposite. They kicked it off with a 7th for Elims and then a second 8 Elims. They're just doing better and better. We'll see if that continues as Kamihari now have picked up a couple eliminations. Things are starting to look brighter for this duo today.
But they still got a long ways to go here, Takata. The big thing to keep in mind is that a lot of our teams that are in that top portion of the leaderboard, what they've been doing is having at least 1 or 2 games, netting high eliminations, netting strong placement. So it's gonna be a lot more than just the offhand elimination or 2. A lot of these duos that are outside of that top 5 territory, they're gonna need to start pulling in 6-7 eliminations per game, strong placement finishes. And it's always easier said than done, but for Pablo and Chino, this is... they are eating good right now at Sandy Strip.
Yeah, they are having a great time. Almost too much. Like, what do we do with all this? We'll see how the zones end up closing up, but Thomas Focus. It was a rough late game rotate. I'm glad to see the amount of damage they've got so far, though. Scavenging through Battlewood Boulevard. And again, kind of in the south side of the zone.
It's crazy that there's still some goodies left over. Even though Sky and Scroll, you know, that's their initial starting point, but makes sense. One duo can only carry so much. Thomas and Focus, they're really just trying to be wary. I'm certain that they're fully aware of that hill that Sky and Scroll like to take claims over, surge base on. And it's going to be difficult to avoid their line of sight, but where there's a will, there's a way. Vika Malabuka, ready to get going. Want to try and avoid any congestion wherever possible. Probably one of their healthiest surge metrics that we've seen so far here today, but Fnatic and Moneymaker could be a thorn in the side here if they actually choose to try and force this battle up against Malabuka and Vika. You never know what duos might be a little bit more desperate for some of that surge.
Yeah, this was the main duo I was talking about when I said, you know, EU Titans actually struggling with net surge. It was Malabuka Viko in the last match, and when you're 460 above, you do not want to risk getting tagged in these fights right now. They do not need it. So I'm glad that they're focusing on the rotate here. Syaz, Scary, it's about time for them to have a big match if they want to keep up the expectations going into today. I guess the performance that they had yesterday, expectations are a little mixed. 24 points so far. Let's see if they can get a big one.
Well, first we got to see what Zany and Burke decide to do. They've been waiting things out. Thought for a moment that they were going to choose to pop out. Scary and Syaz rolled on by, but not the intentions, not just yet. Jen isn't cheating. Decent spot on the edge of zone. They're just trying to scope out, see if there's any teams. Even let it open a little bit too long, maybe that they can take advantage of, but at least for right now, they're gonna avoid most of the lobby focus.
Shark Team 281 above. We saw them get the 2 eliminations off Spawn on Huddy Fishy. And they have a very good amount of mats, actually. If they can pull some zones here, this can be another very big match for them. If anyone's capable of a back-to-back win, it's going to be Shark and Teeny.
And when you compare, though, both sides of the zone, Kira, Karama just under so much duress right now. Pixie, Swizzy just going to take advantage of the circumstance. Big eliminations here for these two. Another one of our duos that they need every single point they can get. 25th. And we never said it was impossible for them to come back, but they are playing with new life right now here today, Takada.
Yeah.
In this 9th lobby, this is where a lot of that willpower is truly going to be tested, because they can convert this into a great endgame finish, and it starts with just 1 more elimination, 4 more points added to the count. Every little bit just kind of sending a new little bit of revival into this duo. New hopes, too. They might actually just squeeze in for that land qual, and that we won't have to sit out our Major One Summit LAN. We'll have at least 1 out of 3 representatives from that global championship team.
From 47th place to 25th today, the issue is, despite these consistent performances, the job's not done. They need to continue having these matches every single game, but be careful. Teeny's actually been knocked if you look at the bottom left. What has gone wrong? Hopefully Shark here is able to pick him up, but it doesn't seem like anybody is actually pushing them.
Look, don't get me wrong, Shark and Teeny, they might have had a lot of materials, they might have had a decent amount of heals there, Takada, but their positioning was a little bit scuffed. They were kind of sandwiched between 2 separate teams, Haruko and Kira at one point. I believe when they made that initial rotation, they're kind of forced to shift towards lower elevation. Now boxed up right next to Aza and Ifrozi. We've already seen Aza pop off once here today. So even contenders like Shark and Teeny, you've gotta be wary that where they actually want to duke things out. Thomas focused, 210 above. Probably one of the most favorable zones that they're going to get. And now Thomas, so confident in Boop Chat yesterday after the fact. Levin already highlighted it. Just give me zones, and I will show you a champion performance. We'll wait to see just how he intends on delivering. Might have to deal with iDrop and Medius nearby, though. But Thomas, focus, patient, scheming, that's for sure.
To be fair, this is one of the better kind of surge they've had. I'm hoping that Overdrive didn't go too wrong, but Shark Teeny, they are so good at getting refreshes when they need it most, but it was even a refresh onto Syaz and Scary, our now 5th place team. They are not having a fun day, but on the contrary, Shark and Teeny, they're now back in business.
Yeah, that Spanish flame, unfortunately, seems like it's sort of sizzling out right now as Scroll, Sky, 343 above, taking shots back. The rest of the lobby sort of funneling in towards their direction. Won't be able to get the pre-dead just then onto Dinas and Fernek. Escape by directly underneath them, but when you are this set on Surge, you can still take your time, pick your moments when you want to strike next. Thomas focus might be in a little bit of a stir here right now. Shakos nearby. They're gonna drop their pizza box. Tom's gonna carry some of those slices, but Focus definitely wanted to heal up a bit. Flowberry Mist Grenade too, and you have to remember, anytime these Flowberry and Mist Clouds are seen, teams on height, bound to start looking, trying applying pressure into those areas. Minori, he's not careful, he might get sandwiched in between Shark Teeny, Focus, Thomas, but so many teams collecting their own fair share of eliminations here, and Pablo making it look too easy. Werex, no idea what happened next there. The pre-edit just too powerful.
Pablo Chino, they've gotten top 10 in the last 2 matches, but it's still not enough when you're competing against Sky Scroll. It's just so difficult to push them out of the 1st place spot. You mentioned it, Taco. Thomas HD Focus said, give us zones. We won't disappoint. Well, let's see it happen here as Sky and Scroll pick up an elimination. And now focus on making it towards zone.
And with Sky Scroll applying that kind of pressure too, it puts out the warning signs for everybody else in the lobby. They start closing off their walls, they start boxing up, so that makes it feasible for them to just rotate so freely off that overdrive grenade. But look at the high ground. Swizzy, Pixie, they've actually managed to escalate themselves up. Cheat and Giannis, when it looked like it might be theirs for a moment, now they'll be forced to just sit in that secondary height position instead. But how much pressure can Swizzy and Pixie truly apply here? They've got their work cut out for them. Teeny, though, he's taking a tumble. Shark left as a solo here. Front side of zone at the very least, but still so much to deal with. So many other teams looking to try and cut him off along the way.
Repairs also got cracked now. Sure, trying to figure out which way he even wants to go. They are not grouped up here, but a refresh is going to come through. Focus, though, has to be on getting to zone. Thomas HD and Focus. Good synergy here. Both players looking healthy. Issue is running low on mats. They will need to pick up some eliminations shortly. Sky Scroll, though, still have good mats. But you got to be careful, Scroll, as he gets cracked. Is going to be able to group up, though. Pizza put down, and now should be able to heal.
But that forced halt, that temporary time lost, that could ultimately be the seconds that make the difference. Pullback gonna help Shark out just a little bit here. Stuck inside of his own wooden cone, waiting to see who he can actually try and close in on. Repairs. They had to work to get into their position in the first place on the leaderboard. And now it's looking like this lobby might be working against them. But Shark knock onto Pablo. Chino, he might just be able to see if he can turn this one around, but no, he'll have to abandon Pablo. Not going to be able to actually opt for that revive. Shark knows it's only a matter of time before the Siphon comes into play for him. He's going to wrap around, take advantage of it, but you can tell already the Storm Sickness is a problem here right now for Shark. He can't afford to tank up any more ticks of zone. He's gonna have to hope that Volko doesn't realize on the other side of the wall. He still has no materials left to work with. Gino with another elimination, though. 8 builds. Overdrive grenade effect. Only 1 left, though, for mobility. This is looking like a tough one to close out.
A lot of solos. Pablo was forced to clutch it out. In the last match now, it's all up to Chino. He's got 3 on the board, but it looks like he's going to have to rotate up a hill. Has to break through build. It's getting a little messy. Down below, will he be able to find a way out and even finds an elimination alongside it? Sky, we've seen your solo clutch potential. You now have another shot to do it.
Just lurking around. He is going to find a big shot that's going to connect all of those goodies in ultimate low here. It's familiar territory, but look at Swizzy and Pixie. We knew they needed to have a monumental day here, and they are making sure to do everything in their power to find it. Malibuca, Vico, also another team looking to try and see if they can pick off Sky. Pressure from above, pressure from below, and Sky Scroll, they are out of this one, but Chino still trekking through, still breaking all of these pre-existing builds. Front side for now, hoping that he can stay concealed away from the team on height, but you never know. The moment that he drops, ultimate low, currently controlled, Vico and Malibuca are the ones looking to try and cut some players off here. Vico with that mythic chaos too. Swizzy, Pixie, they're just trying to keep their distance for the time being. But Volko, Cringe, they're gonna head straight into where Vico Mally just dropped into, but Vico gets the better end of the exchange. Both Cringe so incredibly low, they're not gonna be able to withstand the pressure here. Mally and Vico with just another extension of builds and materials to work with.
This is the first match today that Vico and Malibuca have gotten into top 10, and they are not disappointing. Chino with a big shot connecting as well. 12 HP is all that's left. He's going to be forced to drop down. Issue is, the team up above, they're going to capitalize on that. It might be just up to Swizzy. Pixie is out of shield. He's out of HP, but we